Is a Wi-Fi router in your house and your cell phone quietly contributing to serious health issues? Today I sit down with Shane Reilly, a certified building biologist who specializes in identifying and reducing electromagnetic fields, or EMFs, in homes. After leaving his career as a firefighter paramedic due to mysterious health issues and later losing his mother to brain cancer, Shane has dedicated his life to helping others create healthier indoor environments. Shane shares practical, research-backed steps to reduce EMF exposure while still enjoying the convenience of modern technology. Stay until the end to hear Shane's take on which EMF-reducing products actually work. Let's dive in. Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Katie Deming, and this is the Born to Heal podcast, where we explore holistic practices for cancer prevention and healing. Let's welcome building biologist Shane Reilly. Welcome, Shane.
Hey, Katie. Great to be here.
And so I'm excited to have this conversation. So, I want to start by asking you, what is a building biologist and why would anyone need one?
So a building biologist is a school of thought or discipline that came out of Germany in the 1980s over to America, and it is focused on reducing the disconnection that we've created with Mother Nature in our world. And that primarily rests in the home, that disconnection. So we work to make the home, we could say, as healthy as possible, but really we're talking about kind of breaking down that barrier in terms of the air quality, the water quality, the light, the building materials that are used, and the electromagnetics or EMFs. So all of these things that are in our homes, which do nice things for us, and we could list those. They also have kind of a downside, and a big, underscore to that is that we're just not outside anymore, and we're disconnected from all of the good things that nature has to offer.
Okay, awesome. So basically, you come in and you look at people's homes to help them mitigate the things that are disconnecting them from nature through their home specifically.
Yes, we can get into vehicles and commercial spaces like an office where we might also spend some time, but we spend most of our time in the home, so that's where we focus. And my work is really around the electromagnetic, the EMF side of it in the home, which is a big enough chunk for one person to focus in on, believe me.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and tell us why are you interested in this? Why did you get into, or why did you become a building biologist and specifically interested in EMFs and how they impact our health?
Yeah. So I got into these because I was completely blindsided by them on two major occasions where my health or a family member's health was severely impacted. So about 2010, I was working as a firefighter paramedic, and I was young, I was healthy, we were working out all the time. That was when paleo was really taken off. And so we were eating super clean, and yet I was not doing well. I had brain fog, I had muscle aches and pains, a list of ailments that I really couldn't figure out. And it didn't seem, a supplement or a visit to a doctor had some minimal effect, but it would always sort of wash away and I'd be back where I started. And so it got to the point where I actually had to leave that career behind. And that's a really hard career to get into, and it's super awesome, very rewarding, very challenging work. So it was heartbreaking. But when I walked away from it, symptoms went away. And I thought, that's interesting. Along with that rise of paleo, this was the time when podcasts and health gurus were kind of kicking into gear as well. So I heard this thing about EMFs. I'm like, what is that? What is that? And I learned that all of our technology, our devices, the power flow in our homes, that all emits this thing we call colloquially EMF. And I realized in the firehouse, I was surrounded by that stuff. We had a huge, radio antenna on the roof. We had walkie-talkies. We had pagers. We had cell phones. I was up all night, running calls under terrible fluorescent artificial lighting, going in and out of hospitals, taking patients, things like that. I realized I was just inundated with this EMF. And amongst some other things in the firefighting world, it had really impacted my health. And so I started to dive into this hole on EMFs, and I got a basic meter and started walking around the house doing this, and people thought I was strange. But I knew there was a link there. And so I started to learn more. And then just a couple of years after that, my mom was diagnosed with a GBM, a glioblastoma multiforme, which you know a lot about, I imagine. And it was very shocking. She was 73 years young and had a ton of energy and life and love to give to her family and the grandkids. And, 8 months later, she was gone. And that was really hard too. But with my newfound knowledge and some of the different, little meters I had, I thought about her life, how she used technology. I went around her house. I took measurements, and it clicked into place that this EMF thing was a problem for her. I believe it was the major cause of her tumor. Always talking on her cell phone right up here. It was on that side of her head. iPad under her pillow, falling asleep with it. Power lines outside of her second story window. So at that point, I was like, we can't let this keep happening. There's got to be something we can do about this, right? We got to alert people. And the simple Google search revealed the Building Biology Institute and laid out their program and their curriculum, and I was all for it. And that finished up. That was a few years of work and study, and that finished up in 2017. And I've been practicing doing in-home consults in Oregon and Washington since then, and also, a lot of remote work across the country, across the world. So it's been a wild ride.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like getting into this kind of work, oftentimes people have a personal story where it really hit home and creates this desire and need to learn more so that you can help other people understand it.
It's so true. It's not like the overall cultural awareness is so low on this that, you don't wake up one day and, I think I'm going to go into the trades and become an electrician. Nobody says that with EMF. Yeah, you have to have been impacted in some way.
Yeah. Well, so can you tell us a little bit about what is a home inspection by a building biologist? And by the way, for the listeners, the way that Shane and I came into contact is that Shane did an inspection on my home here in Lake Oswego, Oregon. And so we'll talk a little bit about that, like some of the things that came up in my home, because I think these are common things that come up for people. But can you tell us a little bit about what is inspection by a building biologist, and what are you looking for? What is it that you're inspecting?
It may be helpful to back up 1 second and just kind of talk about where EMFs have come from and what they are. Basically, in the last 120 years, our world has totally changed in that we have harnessed the electromagnetic force of the universe. If you talk to a physicist, that's one of the major forces at work in the universe, up there with gravity. So it's this flow of energy, and we have harnessed it in a certain way to create an electrical grid to send signals, from one place to another through the air, radio waves, TV waves, now cell phones, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, smart meters. So we have added all of this. It's alien energy. It's not the same type of energy or field that is emitted by the earth or by our bodies, or that was present before that 120 years ago. So all of the lighting, all of the wiring, all of the tech gadgets in your home all emit some type of this alien energy, which we're calling EMF. And in many cases, we have no idea, and we are surrounded by it 24/7. And it's totally foreign to our bodies. So getting into the home inspection part of it, we look at what is outside the home and coming in. So there may be power lines on your street. There may be a cell phone tower that you can see outside your window or just in the area, through some trees, behind some buildings. There may be a neighbor that you're close to that has a really strong internal Wi-Fi signal. So we gather data on what's coming in from the outside. And then we go into the home and we look at the home electrical grid. So everything from where the power comes in and off of the power lines or the underground power lines that come in up into the electrical panel. And then we understand where does it go in the house? What is the interaction with all of the appliances, the lighting in the home. We're gathering data on all of these things and kind of grading them on a system and laying them out in a report so that we can see, well, there's a problem in the living room and on the other wall that it shares with the office. And then we can kind of zero in and try to understand, did an electrician make an error in the wiring? Is there some type of issue there? We're also going to look at the network in the home. So the way that you connect to the internet, your computers, your phones, your TVs, all the smart devices now, they're everywhere, just everywhere. And we gather data. How strong are these things? Which frequencies are involved? And so we take all of this and we look at first the areas in the home where we spend the most time. So the bedroom is at the top of that list. Sleep is the critical time. I'm sure you know this and a lot of your listeners know this, but it is a critical time for healing, recovery, having a really, really good optimal health span in your life. And so we really focus in on that area. How do we make it as clean as possible in terms of this exposure from inside or outside? And we can talk about some of the ways that might work, but there's a number of different remediations we can bring in. But we're trying to get that campground experience, if you will. Like you go out into the woods and you're away from everything, and besides, maybe an ache or pain from that one rock that was right there, you kind of wake up feeling refreshed in a different way. And that's what we're after. That's what we can create for people in the bedroom. And that really lends itself to so many areas of life. Other areas where you spend a lot of time in the house. Maybe you're a work from home person, so we're going to pay attention to that office. And, are you sitting right next to your Wi-Fi router? Is your screen really obnoxiously bright with artificial types of light, like blue light? You may have heard about blue light. There's so many paths to go down with this. Maybe it's the kitchen, it just depends. And different appliances, anything that uses electricity is going to have some type of EMF profile. I don't want to scare people. I will say we're not trying to put anyone back into the Stone Age. We understand that technology does good things, the ability to stay warm in the winter, or to turn a light on so you can see, or to connect to your business, so you can pay your bills. But we try to find ways where we can maintain these benefits, but push down the negative side of these EMF exposures as much as possible. And there's a vibrant network of people like me across the country and the world that all share in these ideas and the ways to do this. So we have very good solutions now that pretty much anyone can implement into their home. Sometimes we need an electrician to come in and make some repairs, change some things. Sometimes we need a home automation specialist, someone who knows about computers and the internet, connecting all of those things. But generally, we have very good success in towing that line of we want to keep the benefits, but we want to reduce the downside.
Okay.
How's that for a home inspection whirlwind?
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that of giving kind of the broad overview. So, we recently went through this. You came in and you did an inspection with me, and you came up with some remediation steps. And I think it might be helpful to give people some examples of things that, like, I remember with my electrical panel. So maybe we could just even start about that as just like some of the things that you recommended around the electrical panel and how to, shut things down when we're going to sleep. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, there's two really juicy topics for your home with the electrical. The first is kind of along creating that campground experience. We have to know which, if you look at your electrical panel, there's rows and rows of electrical circuits that send power to one place or the other in the house. And so we need to figure out which ones of those send that electricity into the bedroom or around the bedroom, because any wire in your wall will have this 3 to 5 foot field coming off of it in all directions. And so generally your bed is right up against a wall. And so you're within that field while you sleep. So we actually identify these circuits, we disable them, we test the surface of the bed to see what happened to those fields and that exposure, and we try to get that eliminated. So we're essentially cutting electricity to the bedrooms, and there can be circuits that run, under your bedroom floor that go to some other part of the house, so we address those as well. And that cuts out about half of most of the EMF exposure that we would find in a bedroom. So that's a really important one. The second one, which you don't see as much anymore, but it had to do with the way your electrical system integrates with the water pipes. Mm-hmm. And water pipes used to be a place where the electrical system in homes grounded. So that we all know about grounding in the electrical system. And because those pipes were metal and they went through the soil all over, they were a place where we could safely, as far as like not catching your home on fire is concerned, but human health, that's an awakening for the electrician industry. But the water pipes were used, and because they're conductive, if there's an issue in your neighbor's house with their electrical system, that has a pathway now into your house, and it can get everywhere there's a wire in your home and increase certain types of EMF exposures. So that was not a common one that I see much anymore, because we're using plastic in water pipes. So, your particular home, it still had a metal connection all the way through on the water pipes, at least where the electrical system connected. So that creates this very large magnetic field over big parts of your home. And that is a type of EMF that will cut through any building material, virtually any building material. So it goes through walls, through ceilings and floors, and it's a constant alien signal that your body's getting that's disruptive. It sounds bad, but the fix is actually pretty straightforward. And we're just going to insert a section of plastic pipe in line in that metal pipe. And then it no longer has that conductive pathway. So the current will not flow and the magnetic field goes away.
I remember when you told me that, when I was like, wow, what do I do about that? And then the fix of putting in a section of, the plastic pipes, like it was like, oh, okay, this is fixable. But initially when I heard that, I was like, wow, that sounds like a big problem. And then also I just want to be clear with the panel, when we're talking about turning off the part of the panel, it's at nighttime. So when people are going to sleep, then you're turning off that part of the panel.
Yep.
Yeah. And I'll tell a funny story because I have teens. I have a 15-year-old at home, and
I think I know where this is going.
You know where this is going. So, I've got this section for my bedroom that I can turn off, and then I had this section for her bedroom. And she basically set a boundary with me where she was like, yeah, Mom, no, you're not actually turning off the electricity to my room every night. So we had a little battle over that. And I was like, okay, you win some, you lose some, but my part of the panels goes off every night, but my teenager has refused to allow me. She's like, no, we're not going back into the Stone Ages where we don't have electricity. That's not happening in my bedroom. So anyway.
I've seen that one a few times. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It's kids they're the hardest audience to get into this because they're practically invincible. They don't feel what those of us that have a few more decades under our belt feel. So I get it. It's kind of a, put your oxygen mask on first type of thing, and, plant those seeds, and hopefully one day they'll be like, oh, yeah, EMFs. That makes sense now.
Yeah. And you pick your battles, right? So, and that's where I'm like, working into, we're working on getting the Ethernet to have just that connection. So no Wi-Fi in the house. And that's the next thing that we could talk about, because that was another thing that came up is with my Wi-Fi and the router that we were using. And I'm sure that's probably a common thing, having a really strong, we think that that's good to have, like, I have the commercial, router that has the, if the power goes out and everything. So it's a business one that everything keeps running, but the signal is really strong throughout the house. So maybe you could talk about that piece.
You really hit it on the head, that these companies that make these Wi-Fi systems understand that there's a lot of walls in homes and things that block signal. And so they need to turn the volume up. They need to make these systems super high powered, much more than you would actually need, to even download a Netflix show or something. So homes are just oversaturated. You have this much power coming out of that router, but you really need, about that much to get to the areas of your home where you need that connection. But we take it one step further. The starting point for thinking about your Wi-Fi and your network is to turn that all off at night. And then the next step, that's an easy one. You can buy a $5 automatic timer on Amazon to just plug it in and plug your Wi-Fi into that. That's an easy one. Moving on from there, because we'd like it to get a little bit cleaner in the home, would be to use, as you mentioned, an Ethernet system, which is, some people probably remember, but we used to connect our computers to things with a cable. And that's what we're talking about here. The upside is it's faster, it's more secure from a hacking standpoint, and it's much, much healthier. It's much less, there's virtually no emission from that cable. And so this can be easily and quickly deployed in most homes. You can bring a professional in to make it really clean inside the walls. But Ethernet is kind of the next step. We can still keep Wi-Fi. Sometimes we need Wi-Fi for different things, but we can be very strategic in where we put it. And we can get what's called a wireless access point, which is basically like a low-powered Wi-Fi router in different parts of the home where you might need Wi-Fi from time to time. And these products, some of them now even have a very easy on-off button on the front of it, so that when you don't need it, you just press off, the Wi-Fi goes off. Everything else, all the other connections in the home that are on Ethernet work just fine. And that's really a good balance, again, of that, keeping the benefit, but bringing that downside out of it.
Well, and this, we didn't talk about this actually in my inspection, and I know that it's not with the home, but it's actually devices in the home. What do you recommend for like cell phones and that kind of thing? Just basically shutting them down at night? Or what is your practices like within your home? How do you deal with that, with the cell phones?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's really important. The first one is that we need to get over being available all the time. And you can put your phone into focus mode or whatever it is to stop the notifications, but the phone is still transmitting these alien energies. So it's a best practice to, one of two things with your phone, is to put it in another room so that it's, let's say, at least 10 feet away from you. You can turn the volume up so that if you have to have that notification, you can hear it. But any small increase in distance from these things that create EMFs creates a drastic drop in the exposure. So you can put the phone further away. What I like is to leave the phone in airplane mode, the full airplane mode, because your phone has multiple antennas on it. It has a cellular antenna, a Wi-Fi antenna, a Bluetooth antenna, and a few others. Um, so there's some info on my website that people can see about what it really means, how you would achieve full airplane mode. But just leave the phone in full airplane mode or power it down, check it periodically. That's probably the best for cell phone use. Certainly don't keep it on your body when it's transmitting. Put it in airplane mode. You can get, some people might say you can get a shielding case for your phone. But in a lot of cases, your phone senses how much signal, how much reception it has, how much strength it has in that. And if it's getting low, it can actually turn up its transmit power. So you're kind of 2 steps forward, 1 step back with a cell phone case. I think it's just best to leave it off. There's some privacy concern, related issues here with your phone listening to you, and some skullduggery that we've all heard about out there with big tech. The other thing that people can do is to get a data phone, a voice over IP, which is basically a phone that works off of your laptop or anything connected to the internet with that Ethernet cable, just like an app. I use one called Open Phone. It has a monthly cost to it. There's one called Google Voice. But you can make calls, receive calls, texts, all that stuff, all through your laptop or your computer. And it's a no Wi-Fi situation if you're connected to Ethernet. So
interesting. Okay, so I just want to make sure I understand that. So it's basically like a phone app, but it's running on a laptop that's plugged into an Ethernet. So you're not having any cell.
Yep.
Okay.
So the one wrinkle here is that the cellular number you got with your phone when you signed up, you would have to get an additional number to that. So we can't make that cellular phone number work through the data phone. But the systems work great. Some of them even like record the call for you and give you notes. And so there's a lot of cool features. If you search for VoIP or voice over IP, you'll be inundated with choices, and you can find a system that works for your setting.
So like if you had something like that, potentially your cell phone you would only use when you're going out of the house and needing like true cell service. But then when you're in the house, you would basically have your phone on airplane mode and you would be using it through the computer. Basically, is that how you would see using that? Is that?
Yep,
is that correct?
That's how we, in the world of being concerned about EMF, would integrate that kind of solution. It involves a little legwork to get your family and your contacts aware of both numbers, and hey, it's probably best to try me on this number. I'm more available on the data phone number, things like that.
Yeah, but I think about it where I'm like, I don't really. No one calls me like on my phone that, with like calling, maybe texting or whatever, but you can do that on your laptop anyway. So I feel like there's a lot of things that you use your phone for that you don't necessarily need the phone for per se. And then you could just use your phone for, when you're out.
Yeah. And this really helps us get away from some of these concerns over the psychological part of our phones and our tech and our apps, and the behavioral stuff, the endless scrolling, things like that. So it's a win.
Yeah. Well, I'm not addicted to my phone, so I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, me neither.
I never look at it every 10 minutes. So, okay, can we talk about lighting for a minute? Because I know that you talk a little bit about that as well. Can you let's talk a little bit about what are the things that people need to know about lighting and some of the, tips that might be helpful for them to think about how to improve that in their home.
The light from the sun is the key driver of health, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. It is absolutely the signal that our body needs to tune into throughout the day, as well as when it's gone at night, to understand what it is supposed to be doing. Artificial lighting in our homes breaks that relationship, because we can turn a light on that has the color equivalent of solar noon in the middle of the night. And so our body gets this signal that, hey, it's time to do middle of the day things. It's not time for sleep. Melatonin? Nah, we don't need that right now. So it's a big disconnect. It's probably the biggest disconnect that our homes have created for us, is disconnecting us from that circadian rhythm, that light and dark. Sunlight is changing all throughout the day with different signals to send to us to tell us what to do. So in our homes, our screens, our light bulbs, even all the lights on appliances, the street lights that are coming in through the windows, those just do not mirror the sun at all. And they also have this behavior that's called flicker. And flicker is this imperceptible on, off, hundreds, thousands of times each second that these artificial light bulbs and screens are emitting. We can't visually see it, but we can perceive the flicker. And it's linked to epilepsy, seizure-like conditions, migraines, headaches, eye fatigue. It's a real thing. It's not fringe. You can search on flicker, lighting flicker. You can take out your cell phone right now and do a slow motion video of the lights wherever you are. Play that video back, and in most cases, you'll see the stutter. So there's a couple of ways to hack this. And again, getting back to the connection with nature, the best way to hack this is to tune into outside light throughout the day. So for me, for a lot of people out there, we time our waking with sunrise and we go right outside and we tune into that signal. UVA light comes on, about an hour and a half after sunrise, then UVB, then solar noon, and then it kind of UVB drops, UVA drops. But we're checking in periodically with the sun into our naked eyes, no glasses, nothing covering them. Glasses and window glass in our homes we think, oh, it's nice. The home has a lot of windows. We get a lot of natural light. It's not natural light. Frequencies are being filtered out, and it comes to us akin to an alien spectrum that confuses our bodies. So the number one thing to improve your light diet, as it were, is to get outside. Set those reminders on your phone. There's a great app my friend Sarah Kleiner has created called My Circadian, which will tell you wherever you are in the world what the sun is doing. It will send you reminders and notifications when the different frequencies of light come on. So I use that all the time because I forget. I'm doing things, I'm busy, and it's time to go outside for a few minutes, things like that. As far as the lighting in the home, thankfully, of the EMF movement, I think the lighting part is catching on the most. And so there's a lot of companies that are sort of hacking these deficiencies in our modern bulbs and engineering things that are a little more circadian friendly, reduced flicker, better color temperatures, warmer, redder. So that's great. Block blue light is a really good one. I like them a lot. They have a whole variety of bulbs and LED strips that you can use. But with these, we want to have the ability for the color temperature to change as the day goes on. So that's like, we want it at sunset, we want it to get to more like candlelight. So orange, red. That's the safest kind of light to see at that time. Think of firelight. So those colors. During the day, it can be whiter, it can be bluer. But block blue light actually has a great product now that they've come out with recently that it has 3 color modes in it that get warmer. Each time you switch the light on and off, it changes. So it's pretty cool. So that's one good thing just to look at your bulbs in your home and think about.
And what are those kind of lights that have the 3 different temperatures? What are those called?
I think the name they've given them is BioLight or something like that. But if you go to the Block Blue Light website, you'll see them.
Okay.
Yep. So they're pretty handy. I think I may have even recommended a few on your report. So that's the bulbs. Let's talk about the screens. Screens have the same problems, and most people were probably staring at those more than anything else during the day. So There's a great bit of software called Iris. The website is iristech.co. And so they make a product that will control the light of your screen as it tracks kind of sunlight and will keep it warmer as the day goes on. It also eliminates most of this flickering effect. And it does it all in the background automatically. It even has modes, if you've experienced eye strain, you can turn your whole screen red. It'll also turn the brightness down. Brightness is a thing that I haven't touched on yet, but the color of the light is very important into not tricking our bodies. So is the intensity of the light and the brightness of the light. And so even if you had, a really nice all red bulb that was super bright, very high lux, very high strength at night, that can also disrupt, for example, your proper timing on release of melatonin. So the Iris software for screens is great for your laptops and computers. Unfortunately, they don't support phones. I've got a little app on my website, and you can also search for like iPhone red light hack, so that your iPhone screen can go. It doesn't go completely red, but it's better than nothing. But so yeah, these are all things we can do with our lighting. Blue blocking glasses. It's very important. There's some lights in your house that you just can't control. And even a little bit of this bad light at the wrong time can upset your sleep. So blue blockers, so long as they are very orange or red, are very effective at protecting yourself from this kind of circadian disrupting frequency.
And do you recommend, because I know we had this conversation before, the orange versus red at different times. Can you just speak a little bit to that?
Yeah. We really want it to be after the sun goes down, particularly red. And a lot of people don't like that. You can't see as much because you're missing a huge chunk of the spectrum that you're used to. But trust me, you will get used to it. Your eyes will get used to it. So after sunset is red. Sometimes if I have to drive at night, I prefer not to. I'll go with an orange. Otherwise, it's really not safe. And you should definitely, if you feel unsafe driving with orange blue blockers on, then just, it's not worth it. Don't do it. But yeah, orange can be good if you need to see a little bit, but I would really push people to go full red after sunset.
During the day, you see people wearing the yellow ones during the day.
Mm-hmm.
Do you need to do that? Or if you have the, Iris app on your computer, is that enough? Or should you be wearing those during the day?
I think if you have Iris and you have good light control otherwise, in your bulbs and things in your home, if you've upgraded those to circadian friendly, that's probably good enough. And we also want to make sure we're taking those breaks to go outside. If you work in a place, or you're in a place where you can't control the light environment as well, then definitely get some yellow blue blockers for
to wear during the day.
During the daytime. Yep.
This has been really helpful. I'm having this inspection done on my own home was really illuminating, but then also these tips, you're giving a lot of tips in this episode that people can just do on their own, which I think is amazing. So I'm wondering, is there anything else that we haven't touched on that you think would be really helpful for people to know about?
Yeah, I would say two things. The first is that there's a lot of noise on the internet, like with any subject about EMF. There's a lot of snake oil salespeople out there. There's a lot of half-truths into what works, what EMFs are, what you should be concerned about. Finding a professional in your area that can come out and give you a comprehensive picture and remediation recommendations with things that work, that they know work because they've used them with other clients is a huge value. And instead of trying to kind of fumble your way along, a lot of people will focus in on one issue, like, oh, they put a smart meter on my house, that's the end all be all problem. But our homes are a plethora of different sources and types of EMF. So that's a really big one. I would encourage you to work with a professional when you tackle this. The other one, I was going to bring this up that I think people should know. It came across my email the other day from a doctor out of France. I think he's out of France, Mark Arazi. He has a website called Phone Gate Alert, and part of his work is to test cell phones. I think most people have seen a news report or two of, hey, this phone actually exceeded the SAR ratings. They're going to get fined. They're going to have to take it off the market. So he looks at that. He tests in a more accurate way, but he also brings up research related to health issues from EMFs. And I saw one just recently that showed a 230% increase in glioblastoma in the last 20 years, which is wild. But the kicker is it was in the age group 15 to 39. So I really want to set it home for people here that we are seeing some of these diseases, and this is the same thing that took my mom out. So it's kind of a sore spot for me, but we're now seeing it in decades and decades younger people that should be young and healthy. And it has to do with this lack of awareness around this technology and these things that are in our homes. And so it really is worth pursuing and addressing this part of your home to make it healthier. We get a water filter, we get, air quality monitor. We do all these things to make our homes healthier. We use zero VOC paint, whatever it might be. We can't see EMFs, can't really smell them or taste them, but they're there and they're definitely impacting people's healths every day, and younger people. So just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, no, super helpful. And actually, I was going to ask one more question is, they have those little things that you can put on. I know you talked about the case, and actually I've heard that if you put something on your phone that blocks the signal, then it can increase the signal, which basically can cause more exposure.
Yeah.
But what about these, little things that you can stick on your phone? Bodywell is like the one that's coming to mind that you can stick on your phone that's supposed to like modulate or whatever. Is there any value to those stickers that you put on your phone and your devices?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you for bringing that up. There's this whole ecosystem of magic products that promise to essentially break the known laws of physics in what they do. There's a sticker, there's a pendant, there's a crystal, there's this and that and the other. Some of them are thousands, tens of thousands of dollars. It's pretty wild. They put research and science up on their websites that anybody who is well qualified to look into study construction and the design of the research would probably laugh at and throw out. I have never seen one change a reading on my meters, which are many thousands of dollars, professional grade equipment. So if they did what they say that they do, harmonizing a frequency or eliminating a frequency, whatever it is, they would be up for the Nobel Prize in physics because they have figured something out that nobody else has. I think there is something to subtle energies and some of these non-Western understandings of the universe and energy for sure. I just tell people, you really should work on actual physical changes to your home, to your network, to your electrical system first, that we can verify, reduce this exposure. And then if you want this shiny thing on your phone or whatever, that's great. Because there is like a psychological placebo effect here where you might feel a certain way about that sticker or whatever it is, and it could actually psychologically trick your body into not receiving those signals that your body doesn't like the environment. And that could be a headache, that could be a rash, that could be a body ache and pain that comes up in this certain part of your house. So you could actually kind of trick yourself to remain in this environment. Dr. Klinghardt, it's kind of hard to find, but you know who Dr. Klinghardt is? Mm-mm. He's kind of sort of an alternative practitioner, Klinghardt Institute. He's very EMF aware and works with Lyme and mold and some of those types of patients. But he was telling a story in an interview one time about two chicken coops that were identical. And in the one, they put one of these devices, one of these harmonizing things in. And in the other one, they did not. All the other conditions were fairly well controlled. The coop that had the harmonizer, the chickens lived half as long, but were twice as productive as the one that didn't. So I think that kind of speaks to the masking ability, perhaps, that some of these things could do. They might harmonize something, but we still have all of these other EMFs that are doing this subtle thing inside of us over time. So that was a long-winded answer. I just don't think these things should be your first line of defense. I think that's a pretty thin ice surface to walk on.
Yeah, no, it's super helpful because I think people are seeing, I see the ads all the time. And I'm sure, speaking of listening, I'm sure after this, I'll get a whole bunch of ads and, social media and stuff about these different devices. Okay, one last question that I want to ask you about is, this from being in my house, I have a lot of biohacking equipment. I've got sauna and the red light, and I've got exercise with oxygen. And I remember you walking around and being like, okay, these are really high. What do you recommend for people maybe one, you can talk about the EMFs that are produced by these. And then what is the best strategy? Is it that you unplug them when you're not using them? So then you're reducing that exposure? Because I'm not getting rid of my equipment, but I'm wondering what is the best practice for keeping the EMFs down?
A couple thoughts. The first is just so that people understand, most of these products are trying to emulate something that Mother Nature already has available and is already there and free. But we're kind of in this consumer world, and I'm part of this. I have, some red light therapy panels and things like that. But we kind of are like, I want to buy something that's going to do this thing. So I just want people to get outside more and connect to Mother Nature. But there is always anything that plugs in and uses electricity, if it's a therapeutic device, I think of it as 2 steps forward in terms of the red light frequencies you're getting or whatever it is, but at least 1 step back in terms of the EMF exposure that comes with it. It's generally localized, the field, the exposure, to just kind of inside, let's say a sauna, for example, when you're in it. So you probably don't need to unplug it. You can ask a professional about that for your particular setting. But we're concerned with what's going on when you're inside the thing, when you're using the thing. And there are, with saunas and some of the red light panels and different things, there are some of the companies that are waking up to wiring it a different way and doing different things to the engineering side that pull that downside further out of it. The time part of it is another important piece. If you're in the sauna for an hour, that's a much longer exposure if it has high EMF. It's time versus the exposure level. And the only way you can really know is to get it tested and to kind of understand that and then make a decision. If it's really, really bad, if the building biologist that comes out to look at it for you says, oh my gosh, I've never seen one this high. There are other brands that we've all tested in my field that we know of as lower. So we can generally suggest a replacement if it's really bad, or talk to you about how long are you using this? What do you notice when you use it? But we just, there's no free lunch with things that plug in because it's an alien way of using energy.
Okay, perfect. So that's super helpful. And I too want everyone to go outside. And though I do know for people who are healing cancer, and especially a sauna, there's real value to getting that detox. And then, red lights and PEMF, there's benefits for people who have chronic inflammation and healing. And so it is that balance of,
yes,
understanding that there is EMF exposure that comes with that. So this has been really helpful for me. I loved actually having the inspection, and then this conversation has been really helpful. I'm wondering, can you tell people where can they find you? And do you do just local inspections, or do you do remote inspections? How does that work?
Yeah, I definitely will go where the need is. There's travel costs with that, of course. But yeah, Oregon and Washington are really my kind of home court. And then I do travel beyond that as needed. Again, there are very good colleagues of mine across the country, and you can find them on the Building Biology website. People can get in touch with me on social media. If you search for Optimal Dwelling Spaces, you'll find me in most places. That's also my website. And there's very easy ways on there to jump on a free 15-minute intro call to ask your questions and connect that way. So that's probably the best.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Shane, for sharing your expertise and coming on the show.
Thank you for giving me the chance to let people know about this and get the word out. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining me on Born to Heal. It's been a privilege to share this time with you, and I hope that today's episode has offered you valuable insights on your journey toward optimal health. Please consider subscribing, sharing this podcast with your friends, and leaving us a review. To learn more about how you can work with me, please visit katiedeming.com. You can find additional resources in the episode show notes linked below, and remember to join us next week as we continue to explore more holistic approaches to healing. Until then, this is Dr. Katie Deming, reminding you that just like me, you were born to heal.